we'll get this started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, depending on where you're joining from. I want to just start by thanking you for carving this time out. This is a session that's going to be run by David Butter, who's sales, client partnership, and leadership expert. And if you haven't listened to David Butter's talks, trust me, you're in for a treat. So, some tangible advice, how we can switch over from short-term sales to these long-term client partnerships. And it goes so much in line with some of the notions and the topics that Karen, CEO of the AESC, shared in session number 1. So this is the second session of a 3-episode series, the Executive Search Summit series. Today we have David Butter. Next week, Tuesday, we're going to have a session on product innovation, so you'll want to come out to that. Today, David, thank you so much for coming out. I want to also thank a couple of partners who helped sponsor this session. That is Kylo, which is a document generation automation platform. You'll hear more about how Kylo are helping executive search firms in just a moment. And then we also have Daxtra. So search and match technology, how you find the talent in the quickest way possible, going through your database and through outside sources. So we'll share a bit of detail through 60-second speed pitches at the end of the session. Just a quick housekeeping note here, Jocelyn, if you could take me to the next slide. These sessions are being recorded. So if you miss any piece of the session, please don't fear. It is recorded and you will receive a recording afterwards. And I promise you that you may want to share this with some colleagues as well. So when you get that link, be sure to keep it. Everyone is muted, as you know. This is a webinar, but we are encouraging for everybody to ask questions, utilize a chat, utilize a Q&A, treat this like your own Twitterverse or the Xverse, I guess, now that Twitter's changed their name. And I just want to now invite David Butter. This is your session. Thank you, David, for coming out. Look forward to hearing all the tips that you have for us.
Great. Thank you, Ashton. It's great to be talking about relationships. I mean, you're the master of it, Ashton. I don't know why you need an outside speaker for this, but hell, we get along all right. So we can apply that to other clients. Look, you heard everybody welcome. Hello for everybody around the world. We heard Karen speak last week about, you gave the feedback to her about how trusted relationships was kind of the biggest challenge and opportunity that you guys faced, which was lucky because I was just preparing a speech on that. So here we are today talking about it. But you know what? I always have a paradox working with the search industry and working with AESC around the world, in that you guys actually have within you the ability to be, amongst professional services, you should be the best at relationships. You're in the people business. You're listening. You're engaged with people. Lawyers. Lawyers. I understand. Lawyers. You know what lawyers call their clients? One firm I work with, they call them files. And we got a new file. So you guys can do better than that. You could. And so today we're gonna look at how we can do better. I'm gonna give you 5 key areas to think about in building relationships, a top line. But first of all, let's look at where we're coming from. If we could look at the first slide there, Jocelyn. Here are some pictures of relationships that I have known and potentially you have known. Look at those red ones. That perhaps is the typical search, what's the word, graph or firework, up and down. You get a one-off relationship and it finishes. And if you do well, you get more transactional relationships. That's not efficient for you. It's not efficient for the client, but it's perhaps what search has. We're trying to get away from that, right? The green ones below there are, you may have some of those too, and in other professional services, you have a strong relationship that kicks off and then dies too quickly, or you have a relationship that just never really, really takes off as a serious thing. Sometimes one has those things, but what we're looking at is none of those on that screen. What we're looking at is the next slide, which is this picture. we're looking at, getting a relationship, having a faster startup, and getting retention and long-term growth, and not being a firework that kind of drops to earth. And so this is really about how can we do that. Um, let's look, before we talk about the how to get there, what it looks like or feels like when we do get there. If I look in on one of your relationships, or you look at it, what would the signs be? The next slide here. If I wanted to say, so if you've got a great relationship, if you've got a trusted advisor relationship, what would you have achieved? What would I see on the outside? And let's look at the next slide. We would see, first of all, trust, mutual trust. Not, and this is not just the trust in your expertise. Let's be clear. Everybody's got the expertise. They trust you to have the expertise, but do they trust you to work without checks and controls? Do they trust you to put them ahead of you, if you know what I mean, to think of their interests, to say no sometimes? That's the kind of trust I'm talking about. Deep trust. It takes a while to get, and it's very easy to lose. But if you haven't got trust, yeah, not too good. Value as well. And this isn't just value for money. Consistent, meaningful value. Every time somebody who works for me says, there's a problem with the invoice or the client paying, it's not really a problem with the invoice. It's the fact that they just don't see the value. They're paying for the cost plus. They're not paying for value. Whereas when you've got the value relationship, everything falls into place. Do they see consistent value? And are they transparent? Again, sometimes clients hand out little bits of information, but they don't really share. They share the rational perhaps, but do they share the emotional? Or are you working hard enough to find the emotional, to find the connections, to find the stakeholders, to find the broader subject areas behind what actually might be a search? Are they transparent and share everything with you? And are they loyal? And here's the metric for that. I mean, are you the first they speak to in your area of competence? And when that happens, and that's when you get in first. That's when you get the chance to shape the brief. When you're the fifth one filling out an RFP, or your chances aren't very good, and the value is not very good. And finally, the reference. You can ask people for a reference, but guess what? When you've got a great relationship, a trusted advisor relationship, they reference you, they tell all their friends. And do you know what? But you don't get that with many people. But if you've got that with a dozen or 15 people in your career, that's enough. I mean, you can feed off that forever. You have other relationships, but you're not going to get that with every client. But that should be what you aim for, and you should aim for it as well with candidates and with your colleagues too. It's exactly the same principles. So today, then, next slide, please, Jocelyn. And talk about 5 ways, and this will be very quick. We're going to have 5 minutes on each of these. I do workshops with much more depth and practicalities, but we're going to hit these things on the head quickly. Cultivating an advisor mindset that's changing the way we think about how we engage. Becoming an agenda setter, not somebody that takes the brief, somebody who creates the brief. Mastering the first meetings, beginning with the end in mind. You don't start with taking assignments. You start with building a relationship from the very beginning. And building a long-term relationship out of maybe one assignment. And finally, to do that, you've got to develop senior C-suite relationships. And once you have that, everything else falls into place. And when you've got a senior C-suite relationship and a great relationship, how much more efficient it is, how much more pleasurable it is, how much more value you bring. But we have to get there. So that's what we're going to talk about. 5 minutes on each. First one, cultivating the advisor's mindset. Okay, next slide is a quick checklist for you here. On the left is what we do if we're an expert, because I'm expecting, I mean, we're all experts. Every professional services person, everybody in the search industry is an expert in search. One would hope, otherwise you're in the wrong place. But we can tell people, but can we ask great questions and listen? We're for hire, but do we demonstrate what I call selfless independence? That if it doesn't, it maybe they shouldn't make a hire. It may be that, or it's the wrong brief, or you're the wrong person. But show selfless independence in and not just selling. An expert has expertise, but the advisor connects to broader goals. Now, every brief you get surely connects to broader goals, and you need to start there. The big corporate outcomes, that the why before you get to the what. An expert analyzes, an advisor synthesizes, says to the client. So what I'm hearing from you, Jane, is there are three key areas, right? That reasons behind this particular time. 1, 2, 3. And then Jane says, yeah, absolutely. But there's actually a fourth one. And then, then you're having a proper conversation. An expert builds professional credibility. Yes, but you as an advisor will build personal trust. An expert reacts, you proact. And most importantly of all, just turn this thing on its head. You don't sell, you create a buyer. You attract, you don't push, you attract. You lean in, they lean in, and you've got a buyer. So that's a kind of a synthesis of what we're looking at. You can metric yourself on the right. How far are you going there? Next slide, please. This is another way of thinking about this. The short-term sales to long-term relationship. We all usually will come in bottom left with an individual role and an individual assignment opportunity as an expert. And we can go north on that to what a vendor, which is when you get multiple assignments, but you're still selling. You're still not a deep relationship, and it's you as an individual. Now, what you want to do as an individual is move to the right there from an expert to being a trusted advisor, and as a firm, get to the northeast quadrant, which is the firm is a trusted partner, and it's not just you, it's your team and in your firm and others. You can't jump from bottom left to top right in an afternoon, but that's what we got to work towards: building clients for life, building relationships for life, and not one-off assignments. If you're always stuck in that bottom left hand or even top left corner, not only is it not fulfilling, but it's hard work. It's not profitable. It's hard to plan. When you're the trusted partner, everything falls into place. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the second thing is being an agenda setter. Now, what do I mean by that? Next slide, this one. Thank you. Just stay there, Jocelyn, with this one. Now, this rather interesting looking slide shows how a customer, a client, thinks about a hire or any other decision in the organization. There are goals and strategies that the lioness there, the senior lioness of the firm, and the board, plan, and things then move to middle management, the rhinos and the tactical programs, and they sometimes get as far as procurement, who are the alligators down there. And over time, happens over a period of time. It might be weeks, it might be months, but where are you engaging? Are you engaging when it's procurement to fill out an RFP? Well, good luck. Are you hopefully at least engaging with middle management, who probably are creating the brief? Yeah, good, but not great. Great is when you're engaged with the senior management around the goals and strategies, where the whole talent program and indeed the firm's 3 or 5 key priorities are discussed, and you're at the table. Now, somebody is at the table with them, and here you're not competing with each other in as search firms. There's the law firm, the management consultancies there, or the advertising agency. It could be anybody. Has the ear of the management, and indeed, when you sit there, you're not talking about search. I used to be in the advertising industry. When I sat there, I didn't talk about advertising. You talk about the firm's goals and ambitions, and you're a trusted advisor to the organization. Out of it comes the work that we do and the work that other people do. So how can you get up there? Well, next slide. It means that you've got to, yeah, that's it. I call it agenda setting and agenda reacting. So if you're agenda reacting, you're down there with the alligators. Good luck, but you're never going to get rich, and you're never going to be really a strategic partner. At least you need to be in the middle there, sensing the priorities. But be part of the agenda setting. And guess what? The critical priorities of the goal and goals of the firm are actually often in the public domain. So you know, you can find it and you can do your own research and you know the category, but be part of the discussion on the priorities and goals, out of which comes your work, and hopefully you know, earn money from engaging with that. You know, in my career, I often sat at the top table where we're discussing those things, or even run workshops for organizations to develop the goals, and then the work falls out of it. It becomes almost you know, sitting duck or whatever. So next slide is to just be clear, a bit of detail here, but we're talking about the agenda, we're talking about the corporate agenda, yes, but do not overlook the individual agenda, the personal agenda of the person you are working with. I've got this wrong so many times that I've talked the business agenda, but I haven't realized what the personal agenda is. The personal agenda, get promoted, or there's a politics thing going on, and there always is, or, you know, and helping a person with their individual priorities, like their personal network, their issues in the firm. Get the one of my party tricks is actually to have lunch with a client in a restaurant with a paper tablecloth and get them to draw the organization chart on the paper tablecloth, and you know, you see where they see they fit, and they explain all the interdependencies of the organization. You suddenly got this thing, and the only challenge is to get the paper tablecloth off without wine, you know, when the wine's been spilt all over it, and without breaking the plates. But it's a nice tip. Anyway, get all those agendas. Next slide. Then, so look, bit of detail here, but to get to this, here are some of the things you can do, and no brain surgery here. You know, use research, get personal, you know, discuss the higher goals, etc. Use your experience and other customers' challenges, and work out the questions before you go in. Don't spend time preparing slides. You know, one of the awful things is we spend time preparing slides and don't prepare questions. Much more important to prepare 3 smart questions for a client meeting, and then you've really thought about and you've got a view on. Okay, and finally then, the next slide is one I showed when I spoke last year, but I just put it up again because when you're having these agenda conversations, it's easy to talk in the bottom left-hand corner here about execution, you know, the plan, the brief, what's the search, blah, blah. Yeah. And we often, on a good day, you know, we'll obviously talk top left about the bigger picture, the left brain, you know, strategy behind it, the business goals. But how often do we actually explore the right-hand part of this slide, which are the dreams and the fears, particularly on the personal side? You know, what difference is this going to make to the firm? What's it going to mean for you, Jim? You know, are you, how are you worried? Are the things that you concern you about, the fears, the emotional issues? My goodness, when you know, ask this in the right way and you've got close, things come out here that you just you absolutely needed to know to do a job. And if you don't, and somebody else explores the emotional, you know, so make sure in your questioning and your listening that you explore the left and right brain sides of this. So thank you. The last slide on that, yeah, just I suggest you use that as a checklist to think about this when you're in an upcoming meeting. Just take that slide and think about how you could apply that. Now to my 3rd out of 5 sessions. Excuse it's a whistle stop, but you can always come back for more workshops if you want to get deeper. Mastering the first meetings. Look, begin with the end in mind. In the first meeting, gosh, have I got this wrong so many times? When you, where are we? Yeah, you've got a meeting with a new client or prospect, and you know, how do you feel and how do you prepare? Well, what you should do on the next yellow slide here is think about how can I demonstrate that I'm not just another search consultant, but I'm a future trusted advisor for you. And how can you demonstrate that in the very first contact? Because guess what? Those first minutes, how you walk in the room, how you position yourself, it is going to be critical for, and if you blow it here, you'll find it hard to change. But if you get this right in the first meeting, you're going to look like a potential trusted advisor. People can judge pretty quickly if you do that. And if you comport yourself like that, think like that, and yeah, if you go in with a briefcase full of slides, and you know, how many meetings have we been in where the client loved the presentation? Yeah, we ran out of time. We didn't quite finish the deck. But did you ask any questions? No, we didn't. Oh, okay. So there's no next step. No. So you made a credentials presentation. Yeah, that's not good. So what can you do? 5 quick tips here. Going to the next slide, please. First, establish rapport. And that's not difficult. You know, that sometimes it's when the coffee's being poured, or you've got to do it on Zoom. You can do it. It works very well on Zoom. Find some commonalities and similarities. I mean, Ashton, forgive me, but Ashton and I both discovered that we were singers and songwriters within 5 minutes of engaging, and the rest was downhill or uphill. No, downhill from there, right? So, you know, find something, and this might be in the public domain, but don't be too crass about it. But find something that you know someone in common. You look on LinkedIn. How do you know Bill? You know, openness, honesty, authenticity. Do that little step and get good at it. Don't be crass about it. Show you really care. Show you've done a little bit of research, but not too much. I overdid this once, and I got feedback from the person that introduced me, and they said the guy liked you a lot, but he thought it sounded like you'd been through his trash. You knew so much about. They don't overdo it, but establish rapport. Next one. Build your credibility. Okay, instead of saying we're the largest firm in the Western Hemisphere in this field and we're bloody brilliant and we've done 67 searches and blah, blah, blah. No, if you've done 67 searches, how about saying, well, look, it's very interesting. The clients in your field, what we're hearing are these are the kind of issues that they're grappling with. And the ones that do well, we've observed there's 3 kind of things that they do very well. 1, 2, 3. How does that resonate with where you're coming from? You've got a conversation. You've established your expertise. You've established that you're an advisor, and the client is either going to say, bloody hell, that's exactly what our problem is, or they're going to say, well, it's interesting you say that because actually, no, one of those things, it's different. We have this problem. That's really interesting. So you're already building your credibility and having a conversation. Next thing, number 3, the goal, uncover the client's issues. So you do your research. When a client says we want to hire, whatever, why? What's the strategy or goal behind it? And is it to do with blah blah blah? It's really interesting, the list of subjects, like sustainability and diversity, inclusion. All these issues are out there. AI that we talked about last week. You need to explore those kind of dependencies, and ask agenda setting or aspirational questions, and show that you're out there. You understand the moving parts of what the senior executive is grappling with today, and you want to relate the job that you're going to do. And not only you're going to do a better job in the search, but you're setting yourself up to be an advisor in more than search, which I know many of you want to do, and it must be an area of growth for you, as it is for other consultants. Number 4, then you can explore the need. This is where you might have started if you hadn't, if you weren't doing this right. But now you can explore the need by looking at the value, the share stakeholders. Have conversations about the dependencies, the urgency. Get at the need, and you will already be quite well set up. Can you do all of this in the first meeting? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But if you don't get through all of this in the first meeting, you'll do some of it on a call and some of it in a meeting. But you must go through these steps. And finally, goal 5 is to get the commitment. And get the commitment, Mary, based on discussion. I think we should talk to somebody else in the organization. This is, again, the thing that we often get wrong. We don't realize the person we're speaking to isn't actually the real stakeholder, or is an intermediary, or hasn't got the full authority, or is only part of it. Get a broader conversation going with more people. And not only that, don't come back to the office and say, we've agreed to write another deck for them and do this and do that. No, get the client to commit to something too, anything. Commit to, you know, speaking to a colleague, checking something out, giving you some information that you need in order to get to the next step, because making them commit to something, and there's the start of a relationship. Don't make it all on your side. So there we are. Next slide just shows that. I'm not going to present all that, but you might do that over one meeting. You might do it over several, but there's a kind of roadmap to cover. And just one more here, next slide. How often have we said, it's stuck, it's frozen, you know, we can't go ahead. I don't know, we've been talking to the client, nothing seems to happen. Well, it won't happen if the things on the next slide are not achieved, which are, if there are not these preconditions, you won't advance. There has to be a clear need. Number two, I have got this wrong so often. I'm talking to the wrong person. They don't own the issue, or they don't own the budget. I had many European roles in my career, global roles as well. But sometimes when my European roles, the European people actually didn't have any power. The countries had all the power. The European guy was there as a kind of mega coordinator, never had enough budget. So I wasted a lot of time. Make sure you know the budget's there. Make sure that the client trusts you. Make sure the stakeholders are aligned. Again, many of us overlook that. Draw them, say, who are the stakeholders? Who else has an influence? And you'll find actually you really can help your client here, because the client's having trouble with their own internal stakeholders and they can't do it all by themselves. You help them do that. And then, and only then, your proposal is clear and compelling. But you can't do a clear and compelling proposal unless you've covered off those 4 previous points. And the final thing on this section is, the next slide, thank you, is make sure that, another way of putting it, that you don't just do the rational part, the rational reasons to buy your solution. Make sure you've explored the political and organization considerations. I mean, don't we know how often it's a political or an organizational thing that gets in the way? There's a budget, there's somebody that doesn't agree to it, there's a dependency. It happens all the time. You waste so much time, you waste your client's time. And it gets you, if you can actually raise this early on and actually have conversations with these people, guess what? You help your client, but you also get deeper into the organization and you start becoming more of a trusted advisor to the organization. And again, the emotional side as well as the rational, the personal side, understand what it means to the person there. Is it a threat for them? Is it a big important thing? What does it mean to them personally, and how can you help them? Okay, so number 4. How are we doing? I've got another, about 8 minutes there, right?
Yeah,
Ashton?
come on, keep going. Yeah, you
Okay, number 4, strategies for long-term relationships. Okay, so here we are. Here's a checklist on the next slide. So it's sort of summarizing what I'm really saying is, if you're going to turn short-term sales into long-term client relationships, you've got to provide superb value early on. Okay, in other words, you're not just going through the motions, over delivering at the beginning, being careful about this, but doing a dimension, covering something off that wasn't on the brief but is a useful thing to the client, wins a lot of things. Surprise value, a perspective, a connection. Introduce them to somebody, bring somebody together, say, I'd like to introduce another of my clients, whatever it is, your network, your colleagues. Become an internal connector. I have done so much of that with clients where you end up actually, and many of you are instinctively are very good at this. You end up being a kind of coach to multiple people in the organization, which is a great place to be. Add personal value to the client as well as professional value. Ask for referrals, build many-to-many relationships, and perhaps the most important of all, periodically say no. No, we don't think that that's a smart thing to do. We think we actually would suggest that you did B rather than A. And even if it's not in your interest to do that, they won't forget that. And then the next slide here is, again, many of you do this well, and if you're seen as the crossroads of your market, that is a great place to be. That is how you become a trusted advisor. The client knows that Mary is the go-to person in this marketplace. She knows everybody. She knows what's going on. The more people you're seen to be connected to, without obviously name dropping too much, the more they'll want to be with you, because people like people that connect with people. Whereas if you're sitting in your box, that's not so good. Be seen at the crossroads of your market. So just a couple more tips. I'm putting a few tips in here. When you're thinking about personal value, think about thought leadership, think about network introductions, personal help, and fun. If you're involved with sports things or charitable things, I happen to be a director of Shakespeare's Globe. I take clients to see Shakespeare. It makes me look cultured, even if I'm not. But they also, they feel rather good and they talk about it. I've got my local member of parliament who I introduce them to sometimes, that sort of thing. They think I'm very connected. Well, I don't think I'm any more connected than they are, but it makes you look like you know what you're doing. So finally, focus on questions. Next slide. Next slide, please, Jocelyn. Yeah. Stop focusing on the slides. Think about what you're going to say. Ask bolder questions and listen. And there we are. Now, finally, then, you've got to develop more senior and C-suite relationships. Many of you as leaders have got that. So here's a slide on the role you should play. Think about this a little bit. You're an expert. You can play the role of an expert, and that's where you have to start. But if you're talking to a C-suite client, they've actually had enough of experts. They want broader-minded people. It's interesting. When I was in the advertising business, I had a lot of good bosses who taught me these things. One of them was Martin Sorrell. And Martin Sorrell in the advertising industry, I'd take him to dinners. He never talked about advertising at all. He talked about some of these other things. He talked about the marketplace. Are you seen at the crossroads of the market? He talked about big picture. There's Einstein. You don't have to be Einstein, but the key thinkers, Sophocles asked questions, Einstein, Peter Drucker asked questions, Oprah Winfrey asked questions. Ask questions that show that you're thinking more broadly. Be a visionary, or have a vision. Think ahead. Clients are busy, get bogged down, but help them see a brighter future. Do a workshop with them. It's really good. If you there's a trick I've got a lot of little things I found, but if you bring people together and you do a planning session for them about where they are and where they're going, you find they haven't got a clue. Well, they might have a clue, but the group isn't aligned on where they're going. Help them do that, and then your work will fall out of it. Have company insights. You're in a great marketplace. You can have insights from other firms. This is what we find. People love it. And be a sounding board. There you are. If you're with the C-suite person, be a sounding board to them. Would they actually come to you? I mean, I've got a lunch tomorrow. A fellow who's been a client C-suite just got a new job, and he said, "Can I bend your ear tomorrow?" He said, "Buy you lunch." So, okay, that's a good place to start. He wants me to be a sounding board in his new role. That's what you want to be. So next slide. When you're talking to a senior exec, if you're, and I use this a bit with people who are, not growing into the role, if you will, you have to, you've got different pressures. Let's turn the next slide here. You have to use agenda setting and not factual questions. You need to think about walking in their shoes. What are the things in their world? They've got lack of time. They've got high expectations. They've got the stock market. They've got so many stakeholders. They've got distractions. They're worried about their son or daughter because they're not spending enough time with them. All these things. And the typical mistakes is to walk in as if with a big presentation and give them value for time. Say, I only need 15 minutes. Oh, that's nice. Okay, and you can do what you need to do in 15 minutes. And if they want to see you again, they'll see you again. But don't waste their time. They're not interested in value for money. They're interested in value for time. I've got a whole presentation on that, which is really about how you can give value for time to senior execs who are time poor. So find how you can give value for time. Yeah, I think I want to pull it together there, running out of time here. So finally, this is the slide I showed at the beginning, adapting that. And what I would suggest is, as a next step, that you strive to become your client's most trusted advisor. And on the next slide, the best thing would be to pick you could make a list of clients, or at least pick one this week and say, here's somebody that I'm on a good track with, but how can I become their most trusted advisor? And what would it take? And there's some tips in the presentation to do that. And if you can have a handful of clients where you're their most trusted advisor, you're going to be set fair. You're absolutely in a great place. So take the first step. So if so there we are. I've moved to a Q&A now. Ashton, I don't know if we've got any questions here coming in.
All right, everyone. David, that was fantastic. I took notes feverishly on my side. Audience, I know you were probably doing the same. Please, if you have any questions, go ahead and send them in. From Rick Clody, we have great stuff, David. Preparation for meetings, calls with clients seem to be paramount. What's the number one thing you feel is best for preparing for that very first meeting?
The very first thing is doing your research on the client the client's business and the client as a person, and understanding the big picture things, which will be in the public domain, a lot of them, and coming in with one point of view. Bill, we haven't met before, and I'm intrigued. I read last week that you said that to the shareholders, blah blah. That surprised me, because nobody in your market has actually said that before. I found that fast. Then he'll talk, right? Show some insight, get a conversation going about their world.
Wonderful. I have here another question. Can you give us an example, David, of how you cracked the trusted advisor status?
Yeah, by making a lot of mistakes and not getting there. But actually, the way I learned it was with mentors. And I remember going to a client, was Avis, I think it was, with my boss when I was in the middle of my career, and he asked me to prepare a presentation. I spent 2 weeks working on this fantastic presentation and all these PowerPoint slides and everything. And we met the chief exec, him and me, and the chief exec. And he talked to the chief exec for an hour and a half. We never even looked at my slides. And he said, my boss said, that was a great meeting. I said, it wasn't. We didn't even look at the slides. He said, we didn't need to look at the slides. So I said, but we wasted our time. He said, no. He said, the work that you did preparing the slides enables us to have a great conversation. And guess what? We've still got the slides to come for the second meeting and charge them for it. So I said, well, that's really cool. So I learned from people who did it very well. Lester Wunderman, the father of direct marketing, who I went to. What you do is you go to client conferences and you speak at them. This is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but if you accept to speak at a conference like Ashton, I agreed to speak at your conference. You're either gonna fall on your face or you better learn something about the subject. So go get yourself seen on platforms, and become the subject matter expert and leader, and go to a lot of TED conferences too.
Yeah, I love that. There's something to be said about mentorship, something to be said about brushing your knowledge up by forcing yourself to be out there speaking at conferences, contributing to the thoughts of what's happening in your space. And that actually goes into this question from another attendee, and I'm just going to ask this and maybe one more, and then give you a plug too, David. So what is the key to flipping the mindset of consultants from experts to being trusted advisors?
The key to flipping it?
Yeah, that's right.
It's switching from making statements to asking questions. I'd say there are five words beginning with S that you don't do. You don't sell. You don't show slides. You don't make a speech. You don't play safe. And you don't speak as a supplicant. Right? And that's how you do it. You have a point of view, and you put the client's need first, and you listen. You ask questions and listen. And it's a rare commodity. Now, look, Ashton, we went through this all very fast. If anybody's listening and wants a bit more, with the AESC, we do that. We run kind of workshops online and away days and planning sessions and summits and so on, where we actually take people, and particularly for the mid-level people who maybe work for some of the people who are on the call, who may do all of this perfectly already, but how do you get your next generation to learn this? Workshopping this is actually really useful, so we can help with that if required, if anybody wants to get back to you or AESC.
David, that's fantastic, because that was the last question I wanted to ask, which came from an attendee. How do we expand this knowledge across our firm?
Yeah. Well, we can do it with one firm in a small thing, but or we can do it in a region. I work in all the regions with, but AESC, who are those who are members, pioneer it, and we can work directly, and we can customize. Just ask the question, and we can have a conversation.
Wonderful. David, thank you so much for all the tips, all the advice. I still have a number of questions. I'm grateful that I have you in my network to ask those questions and continuously pester you. So everyone, connect with David Butter on LinkedIn, and trust me, your sales life will be so much better because of that. David, thank you. I want to just give a few seconds to Daxtra and to Kylo, who are sponsoring this event, just to share a bit about how they're helping retained executive search firms transform. And David Mercer over at Daxtra, we worked really closely together as you were launching your integration, your search and match tool to our Invenius technology. Can you share a bit more about what you do?
Yeah, hi there, everyone, and thanks, Ashton. Hi, I'm David. I'm the head of sales for Daxtra EMEA. At Daxtra, we're experts in automation and AI search and match for recruitment and executive search. Our goal is to help you find the best talent for your clients even faster. We're thrilled to be the Invenius search and match partner and to attend this event for a third year in a row. At Daxtra, we're continuously innovating, leading the way in AI and machine learning. Our global client base, including companies like Odgers Berndtson and Korn Ferry, run over 2 million searches and process more than 100 million resumes every month. The main challenge we solve for Invenius users is to enable them to find the best people for their assignments even faster and easier. So we integrate directly with Invenius to enable users to search over both Invenius records as well as external online resources simultaneously. So we use AI-powered search and match to locate those hard-to-find people across all sources, intelligently rank them based on the context of their experience and skills. So all of this means consultants can get the very best candidate slates to clients faster, more efficiently, and more accurately than ever before. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. And we have a number of mutual customers who are very happy and excited, to continuously use your platform. Thank you. Martin, would you mind coming on and telling us a bit about Kylo's Awesome Docs, which is you've started to gain some really good momentum with your document generation platform, especially when it comes to client-facing solutions. So I'll say no more. Can you talk us through that, Martin?
I sure can. Thanks, Ashton, and hello, everyone. So my name's Martin, and we are Kylo Partners. As one of the first Invenius Marketplace partners, we've used our expertise to create solutions that help deliver a better service to your customers. And we're excited today to show you Kylo Awesome Docs for Invenius, which is our document management solution designed with executive search firms in mind. It allows you to streamline time-consuming manual tasks like creating and editing your summary reports by using Word. So your team will have more time to build stronger client relationships and identify top talent without compromising the quality of your documents you're putting out to them. And from speaking with Invenius clients, we know the challenges that arise when creating or changing documents like your reports, your shortlists, and your summary reports within the system itself. So Kylo's Awesome Docs is fully integrated into Invenius, giving you a single source of truth to work from. With Awesome Docs, you can merge files, create packets of documents, edit files directly from within Invenius, automatically save them back into Invenius from the right record. And we also allow you to securely send documents out for e-signature using our integration now with DocuSign. We've had excellent feedback from the clients that we're working with currently, and we'd love the opportunity to get the chance to show you it directly and how it can help your business. So you can simply Google Kylo Awesome Docs for Invenius or reach out to the team directly on our website. Thank you very much.
Martin, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again to Kylo, to Daxtra for sponsoring the event. David, thank you for coming out and showing us a few tips. Jocelyn Kaza at Marketing, impossible without you, my friend. Thank you so much. And everyone, each one of you as attendees, thank you for coming out. I see it. There's a question asking about the 5 S's. Let me go ahead and give those. Don't sell. Don't worry about slides. Don't go ahead pontificating and giving speeches. Don't play it safe, and don't be a supplicant. That's how we start to transition from expert to trusted advisor. I hope that helps, Lizette. And everyone, if you haven't registered for the product innovation session that's happening Tuesday of next week, please come out. That's going to be awesome. I know I've just been a supplicant there, but come on out, and I promise a lot of great stuff in store for Invenius users, for Bullhorn for Salesforce users, automation users, so on and so forth. Thank you all for staying the last few minutes as well. Have a fantastic week ahead. Bye, everyone.